Lights, camera, action. So on the Allcity Taxi Talk Show this week, we have music producer from back in the day and an absolute legend in many, many millions of people's lives. You've touched us all with your amazing music, whose music portfolio includes Boogie Down Bronx, Hey There Homeboys, Hip Hop Bebop, and many more classic tracks. We got the one and the only man, Parrish. Yes. Woo, woo, woo. Yes.
Woo, 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 woo.
Yes.
Thank you for a great intro. Thank you. Pleasure
Manny,
to be here.
Listen, it's an absolute honor for you to be here doing this at this really.
You're making me blush.
And listen, before I get these this interview kicked off, I want to give a massive shout out to all the doctors and the nurses throughout the world battling this virus, and we're all behind you 100%. Through this hard time. And the reason why I'm carrying on with these interviews is to give people a bit more of a kind of interest in something else, because it's a very, very difficult time.
Absolutely. Amazing what they're doing, risking their lives. If you're watching this in the future, this is about halfway through in America of the COVID-19 virus. So we've been at home for about a month and a half now here in America. And
in UK,
they've been amazing.
Yeah, UK. It's been about a month, but it's quite an unusual interview, because I'm usually driving around in my London black taxi doing the interviews in the back of my cab, and I'm never on camera. So this is kind of like the first time I'm actually seen on camera, which is a bit strange for me. But there you go.
And I'm sitting at home in my garden, you know, or I could be in the bathroom or in the jacuzzi or something. So this is a first for me too, doing this way, and it's great. It's wonderful.
Yeah, nice.
You should do more like this. This is great.
I've got a lot more lined up. Hopefully, Donald D. Bronx and hopefully Cash Money and many more. As
a producer, I'm wondering, if I flip the phone sideways, does it give you better stuff? Or did that just totally screw you up?
No. That's perfect. That's perfect.
See, folks, I'm always a producer. Even though I'm in the middle of an interview, I'm thinking of ways to make it better.
Yes, you know that, Manny. You know that. So, yeah, we've got the legendary man, Parrish, on board. First two questions I always ask is, whereabouts are you from, and what was it like growing up?
Well, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. People think I'm from the Bronx. And I grew up in a predominantly white, Italian, Jewish, and Irish neighborhood, lower to middle class in Brooklyn. I'm very old. I was born in the late 50s.
Don't give it away. Don't give it away.
And I grew up in the 60s and 70s. Oh, it's all right. You know, F them if they can't take a joke, because I look good for 61. But I grew up in the 60s in New York, which was the nuclear family. You know, mom, the dad, the two kids, you know, the picket fence and the dog. And then that rapidly deteriorated into disco in the 70s. You know, I had real brush hair and a puka shell necklace and platform shoes and bell bottoms and all that. And we went out to discos, and rest is history, 80s and 90s. So I'm from Brooklyn, New York. The song Boogie Down Bronx was reference to, you know, well, we got to start with hip hop music, which back when I did it was not hip. Hip hop today is different than what hip hop was back then, because in the early 80s, and I may be going too fast, and we could backtrack if you want, but hip hop was dance music, and we can get into that if you want, and then became rhyme and rap. So anyway, Brooklyn, New York, you know.
And I was going to say to you, didn't you go to high school where they filmed Fame? Where the TV series
Yeah,
Fame?
I went to high school for about... and the movie. I went to high school performing arts in New York because I wanted to be an actor. And my mother wanted to be a stage mother. And I went every day to 42nd Street, Times Square, where the school was, passing porn shops and hookers, going to 9th grade class. And I lasted about 4 months. And Freddie Prince, I don't know if you know him, he had a TV show here in America called Chico and the Man. It was one of the first urban TV shows. and we got thrown out the same day because we were class clowns.
Yeah, he's just having a laugh.
Yeah, well, more than a laugh. I mean, we do some pretty terrible things. Yeah, I went to that school, and it's much like the movie Fame. That's why they did the movie Fame. They wouldn't let the kids out for lunchtime in the neighborhood because it was all hookers and pimps. So they all chipped in and bought a record player and some speakers, and we'd have lunch around the tables. And there were actors, dancers, and singers. So we were all creative kids and stand on the tables and sing and stuff. So it's very much like the movie, except for we didn't spill out onto the street and dance on traffic like they do in the movie.
And dance on top of cabs.
Taxis, yeah. And the evenings, one of the kids who went to high school performing arts that I was friends with, he worked at the Metropolitan Opera House. He was studying voice, and I became an extra at the Metropolitan Opera House for two seasons. I would carry a spear on stage, smoking weed and tripping on acid at 12, 13, 14 years old in the middle of operas. Wow. I've got some great stories, which is too long to tell now. But if you go and you go to Parrish stories on YouTube, you'll be able to hear some of them. But definitely. Yeah, I was kind of in it from the get-go.
And listen, we're waiting for the proper documentary or film to come out about you, or a book, because you have to write. We have to write one.
Here's the thing: I couldn't do a book because I can't sit down and concentrate that well. I've had 3 people try, and they were turning it into beautiful poetic essays when I was dropping F-bombs, and I wanted it to be real. So I wound up instead doing Parrish Stories, STORIES, on YouTube, which is 40 little 5 or 7 minute clips of stories. I would do them non-edited purposely. I just wanted to be flowing, be real. So in essence, that's sort of the basis of a book. I have more stories than that, but everything from Madonna being my opening act at Studio 54 to
Mandy,
flying on the... Yeah, go ahead. But all that stuff is there. Let's put it this way. The book is there in video form right now. A good part of it.
That'll be amazing, and I can't wait to talk to you about all that. That'll be incredible. But listen, going back to the music that you was growing up on, what kind of tracks was you listening to? Back in the day?
There was no dance music back then. You either listened to jazz, rock, or country, or pop, right? And pop was things like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and that kind of stuff, which was really rock and roll. So I got into wild stuff like David Bowie. You listen to that freak and all that. And funny, later on, I was managed by his manager, and I met him and hung out with his wife and all that. We can talk about that. But I was a rocker. And when we would go out to local clubs, CBGB's in Max's, Kansas City, we saw everybody from Bruce Springsteen and the Cars and Aerosmith when they were nobody. Devo, Debbie Harry was a bartender at Max's, would get out from behind the bar and go up on stage and sing and come back. So I was basically rock and roll based, but I liked the glittery, glammy, sparkly side of it. Being a big puff that I am, I had to, give me glitter and makeup, and I'm watching it. You know what I mean? So
brilliant.
Wait a minute. I just want to say I'm not gay, but my boyfriend is. Okay, that's very important. So I want to clear that up right away.
Well, Manny, I was going to say to you, was there any kind of music that was influencing you? Because obviously you was very electronic and synthesized drum machines. Was there any
that was that was separate music that I listened to, which was like my music because my friends weren't into it. So I started very early listening to things like Stockhausen and in the old days, before synthesizers, they would take tapes, edit them together, and make beep, bop, boop, boop kind of music. And I was attracted to that, and I would go to a library that had musical recordings, and I would put the headphones on at 12, 13 years old and listen to that. And that led into things like groups like Yes, because they had a synthesizer. I was more interested in the synthesizer parts, not the whole songs. And that led me to things like Vangelis, who I got to meet and hang out with, which was amazing. Jean-Michel Jarre. And then I remember specifically Kraftwerk. I took a cab home from somewhere, and Autobahn was playing on the rock and roll station because there was no one else who would play it. And the cab, we were just listening quiet, and the cab pulled up in front of my house. I paid the guy, and we sat there in the cab. It was the first time it was aired, listening to Autobahn, and it's like,
Wow.
what the hell is this?
Did that blow
How did they
you
do
away?
that? And that started me. It blew me away. I built my own synthesizer. You may know it as Tandy, but we had Radio Shack back in those days.
Yeah,
Had
Tandy. I remember Tandy.
yeah, right. It was Radio Shack here in the States, and they had a little synthesizer kit that had a plexiglass little thing, and you soldered stuff together. And I sat there and put my face in a bong and made synthesizer noises.
Wow.
And my neighbors thought I was completely weird, but that started my synthesizer stuff back in 1972 or something like that. You know, so those were my bigger influences. You know, and then of course pop music like Depeche Mode, Erasure, Yaz, and stuff just fed that hunger. I was the reason I got attention. I was one of the, and with the album cover that you see behind you, is I was one of the first dance music acts to create a full album, right, of dance music when most people were just putting out singles.
Yeah.
And in those days, you weren't a real artist unless you had an album. There were singles everywhere, but you weren't, you know, you couldn't put out an album, you were real. And I still can't read or write music to this day, but I score orchestras and all that kind of stuff. It's done by ear. But the invention of the 808 drum machine, the only missing piece for me was a drummer. And when the 808 drum machine came out, I suddenly had a way to program drums. And that was never meant to be a recording device, by the way. It was meant to be a programmable practice tool. So if you played guitar, you had a band, or you wanted to write a song, you could write song mode in a drum machine, which is an 808 drum machine, which a lot of people know about it. If you don't, you can Google it. It was the first programmable drum machine because everything else sounded like that bossa nova or cha-cha-cha, you know, kind of preset sound that you were stuck with. And how do you write a rock song or a dance song with, you know, boom, bop, 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 you know? So the 808 really changed everything, and suddenly we were able to program it. And then that's when I wanted to become Kraftwerk, because that's what I heard.
I mean, the 808, was it the Roland 808 was incredible.
Yeah, it was incredible for its day. Now we have it in software, but that lasted for years because it was easy to program, and then it became a street sound, you know, because Arthur Baker, myself, you know, groups like Freeze, IOU, which I just remade, by the way. It'll be out. It's actually probably out now. So by the time you get this up and running, it's there. It was easy, well, kind of easy to program. And it became a dance sound in the clubs. The bass drum on that was at a particular frequency. And if you're a recording person listening, it was around 80 cycles. And what that did to bass cabinets, and if you had a car with a boom box, that's where you hear that traditional boom, boom. It was tuned to a perfect frequency. So after you mixed it, you would take it out to your car, drive around the neighborhood and listen to what you just did. And there was a boom, and people were like, what is that driving down the block? So that all became part of the culture. You know, you were expressing your music through this boom, and you were able to program your drums fairly easily.
Manny, it's funny you say that, because I was, years and years ago, I was listening to an interview with one of the electronic legends from back in the day. And he used to drive
I'm the only one. I'm the only electronic legend. You must have been me.
But no, listen, he used to do the same as you. He used to drive around in his car with it turned up, listening to the sounds that he produced.
Well, the thing is, speakers and headphones were not that good back in those days. I only mix with headphones. I don't mix with speakers. I've done my whole life. It's my point of reference. But in those days, you would have to play it on a small system, a big system, and a car system, which was the suggestion. If you didn't have a massive sound system like they had in studio, you would mix it at home on your little speakers or your headphone in your mom's, you know, in the bedroom of your mom's house. But if you had a car, you would go out and make sure that the vocals were mixed properly.
Yeah.
And that was another point of reference. And oftentimes you'd have to go back because your headphones were too boomy or lacking boom, and you overcompensate and you go, all right, I remember it was, the vocals were buried. Let me go push it back up again. And you'd have to guess. Early mixing was pretty difficult.
Yeah, so that was a good way to listen to it, was driving around in the car with the speakers, you know, tweaked up.
Yeah. Yeah, you had to. You had to, to hear what you were doing, because, like I said, the technology wasn't there for good speakers or good headphones or earbuds.
And Manny, what would you say? What made you start, you know, making music? What was that spark that kind of lit the flame?
I've always loved music. I wanted to be Erasure. I wanted to be Yazoo. I wanted to be Depeche Mode. I wanted to be. I loved pop. So, and then I loved Kraftwerk. And, you know, I was also an artist. So I wanted to take pop music and make it twisted and, you know, somewhere between Kraftwerk and electric stuff. I know I couldn't do guitar music. I know I couldn't do great vocals, but vocoders came and allowed me to do robot voice and all that kind of stuff. So now I could use a vocoder to sing. I had a programmable drum machine, and I had synthesizers which emulated parts of music. I was suddenly a band. So to be able to do pop music, the Hip Hop Bebop album that's behind you, the first album, which, by the way, I was just giving away to everybody with COVID-19 for free, so they could make their day a little happier. The song that I thought was going to be a hit song was not Hip Hop Bebop or a Heat Stroke or Man Made. It was a song called Together Again.
Ah,
yeah, it's a song called Together Again, because I wanted to do pop. Because I wanted to do pop music.
Yeah, because it had that popular kind of feel to it. Yeah.
Right. And I thought, if I do this, I got a chance at getting a song on the radio. Hip Hop Bebop was an experimental piece of music that we then developed, right? There's no chorus, there's no bridge, there's no verse. We just laid down 24 tracks of hey, 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 hey. And then another one, ho, 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 don't stop. And keyboard parts. And John Roby came in and did a couple of parts. And we just laid it down. And then the guys from the record company, which were big drug addicts, spent a weekend drinking vodka and doing MDA and heroin, editing it together from like 30 reels of tape.
Yeah,
and they played it for me, and I said, what the hell is this? You can't release this. It's not music. There's no song to it. Trust me, it's good. So we took it to the Fun House, which is a big club here in New York City, and John Jellybean Benitez, we decided to bark, whoo, 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 because that's what kids were doing in the club. But we decided to bark back at them on the record. And we blew their minds, and standing next to John was this girl with black hair, a T-shirt that said, I'm Madonna. So we used to hang out with him and her at in the DJ booth while he played the record, and the record would bark and they would bark back, and the place would go wild. And
wow,
you know,
what amazing history that is.
Yeah. Well, the studio where we recorded in was a jazz studio, Vanguard Records in New York, and the when we go into our session, we'd be early, or the other session would be running late, and they had like an artist lounge outside of the control room, and you could see through the glass, and Bombada would be laying on the couch with, you know, his Dr. Pepper, you know what I mean, and get up, party people, let's go, and then go back on the couch. Or I would be doing, and then Freeze, IOU would be outside, or Shannon would be coming in. So it was like, in the 50s, 60s, there was a studio in New York, in the South, called Muscle Shoals, which did all the Aretha Franklin and James Brown and all that. So we had our little Muscle Shoals studio in New York, right there. It was a small group of people making these records. A lot of people don't realize that songs like Shannon, Planet Rock, Play at Your Own Risk were done by, I mean, Arthur Baker's a white Jewish guy, you know what I mean? So these records were done by white boys, you know, like Jewish boys or whatever, doing this music, you know, and everybody thought it was like, you know, this soulful, deep stuff. I mean, the rhymes and the lyrics were, but the music was like these white dudes doing all the music. So there's a little bit of history for you too, you know?
But it's quite incredible because it was actually Planet Rock. We called that electro, not hip hop. So I got into electro in 1982. When I first heard Planet Rock, I was like, wow, this is absolutely incredible. And there was another track by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five called Scorpio. And Scorpio,
sure.
Wow, it was like... Phew.
Johnson Crew, Pac Jam blew my mind. So while we're on it, I'll tell people, hip hop, back then, we didn't call it electro, we called it hip hop. And I made hip hop bebop, which is jazz for hip hop is dancing. bebop is music, don't stop. So basically the song is, dance to the music, don't stop, hip hop, bebop, don't stop, which is a jazz term.
Right.
But it was called hip hop because it was dance club music, Planet Rock, Shannon, Johnson Crew, Soul Sonic Force. And then later on, it merged together with rap. Now, rap in America was Rapper's Delight, and
Sugar Hill
all
Gang,
that type of
Hill Gang
music.
and all that, and Curtis Blow.
Sugar Hill Gang, but it wasn't. Early rap was fun, party music, wordy rapping hood, and those kind of songs. It was just fun dance music, and then it kind of combined, and it became more of an urban mess. But we called it hip hop as it is today. So when people say, "Oh, you're a hip hop legend," I'm like, no. I didn't grow up in Hollis in the projects. You know what I mean? I totally respect that and understand it, but I'm not trying to claim that culture because I was homeless at 14 and all that kind of stuff, but I didn't have that struggle. I didn't culture. Hey, somebody wants to be on camera. It's being really sorry about that, guys. Someone wants to be on camera, and he's being a little sweetheart, begging for kisses. All right, you sit on my lap.
Wants attention. I got my cat.
Daddy's doing an interview to pay the rent.
Listen, my cat is in the corner. I might bring my cat on board as well, so we can do that.
Hey, a little pussy is great.
Yeah, I don't know where he's gone, but
hey, I may be gay, but a little pussy's great. Bring it on.
Manny, going back to the Man Parrish album. That's the first album I bought, and it absolutely blew me away. I was like, "This."
Oh my God! No pressure.
this is an incredible album, and there was tracks obviously like hip hop, bebop, 6 simple synthesizers. We used to do basic body popping and like robotic moves and all that. And I'll tell you the track as well.
So let me tell you how I did that in the beginning, which was the beginning of Man Made. So. I came from theater, and I came from all that. So my audio, what would you call it now? It wasn't ambient with a beat, you know what I mean? But I came more from a film side. I would see the music and try to create it sonically, because I can't tell what a C major chord is. I mean, I do now, sort of, but if something's in an F sharp major, I don't know. So I just did stuff by ear. Sorry about all these little faux pas. I jump on my phone, and the case is closing. The dog is. That album was done in my bedroom at my parents' house on an 8-track half-inch tape recorder. And if any listener doesn't know, the tape was this wide and had 8 different stripes on it. So one was voice, one was drums, one was a bass, one was background vocals, and 2 or 3 keyboards, and so on and so on. Even the Man to Man record that I wound up doing, which were friends in my neighborhood, all those records were done at home on an 8-track tape recorder before computers.
Yeah.
Before computers. So we'd have to lay stuff in by hand. So if you think of 2 blinking lights that blink, they're going to be in sync. Eventually they run out of sync. So all those sequencer parts that run in any of those songs, we'd have to go 8 or 9 or 10 bars in, stop, rewind the tape, and pick it up again, punch it in, and run it again, and then it would run out of sync. And we'd have to build up track. We, meaning me, my personalities, would have to build up tracks and until we had something that was tight. Because if I went the Kraftwerk route, I had to be able to program hexadecimal binary code into a thing called an MC8 microcomposer. I had one. I was never able to use it. So it was a lot easier to stop and start the tape than to have 6 simple synthesizers playing all at once. So it was very labor intensive. It was very labor intensive. That was the only way to get that sound.
What you've told me then is absolutely incredible, because now you can get a laptop. You've got all the different software.
GarageBand. GarageBand,
comes
free.
It was totally different.
Yeah, GarageBand, a few plugins, and you could make records like crazy. It comes free with every Apple computer. You get Fruity Loops and download predefined loops. And people say, what should I do to start music? I said, if you have a Mac, you have GarageBand, and there's loops built in. If you have a PC, go get Fruity Loops for $30 or whatever it costs, and get some loops, and you could just start singing with a $60 USB microphone. But we did it the hard way. And then we took that. I remember carrying my reel-to-reel tape machine in a plastic bag, garbage bag, on the subway for an hour from Brooklyn to Manhattan, hoping I wouldn't get robbed, into Manhattan. And then we plugged it into the 24 track, added a couple of extra overdubs, and that we had the capacity there to professionally mix it. But 90% of that album was done at home in my bedroom studio. Which got Boy George there. I mean, that studio so man to man, Boy George and Alicia, Baby Talk. I mean, a lot of people wound up at that sitting on my bed recording. Village People. It was kind of crazy, you know what I mean? Yeah. And my dad was like, who are these freaks coming in here? You know,
Manny, that is absolutely incredible. You know what you done for that album there was absolutely unbelievable. You know, for what you had to basically produce that album is incredible.
I don't feel that, and I don't recognize that because I'm on the inside looking out, but I've heard that multiple times that at that time and that date with the technology, which what was available, it's a classic album. I'm like, how could it be a classic album? I did it in my bedroom. It was just what I did. You know, there would be 8, 12 hours. I would start work at noon and I'd pick my head up and it was light. And I thought, well, it's only been 3 or 4 hours. And it'd be 9 o'clock the next morning because it was it's like needlepoint. It was very intensive micro work getting it done. And time flies when you're doing that kind of concentration. So I still work at home. I don't rent studios. You know, I still have my own studio at home, but it's all changed now.
Manny, was you on the vocoder there? So you was doing the 6 simple synthesizers. Yes. You done all that?
That's all completely me, except for a hip hop bebop where we set up a microphone and Raul Rodriguez who helped work on the record with me and Mark Berry, the engineer. We would bark and make party sounds, but I used a vocoder, and if nobody knows what that is that's listening, it's vocoders were used in the middle of World War II to separate channels of voice to send coded messages, one frequency at a time, and all you'd hear is But on the other side, it was fed back through a vocoder, and even though it was a synthetic robot voice, which people hear, that was the original use for it. So it was a wartime device that was made to send coded messages. It takes voice and strips it out into 128 different bands, like frequency EQ band, and they would send those bands one at a time, and all you would hear is and you couldn't piece it together if you didn't have a vocoder on the other side.
That's amazing.
And then people realized it was a great way to do music later on in the 50s and 60s and stuff like that. So my vocoder that I bought belonged to Electric Light Orchestra. I used to visit the music stores and press my nose against the window because I couldn't afford anything. And I'd go in, I wish I could have that and that. And I said, I knew what it was. I said, what's that box? Because it's a Votroller or vocometer. And I said, oh, really? How much is that? He goes, I don't know. Give me 25 quid and you can have it. And I was like, my God, they're like $1,000. And I said, I'll take it. And I lucked out and suddenly I had a voice.
Wow.
I was able to sing or express myself with voice. So it took the music that was instrumental and suddenly I could do man-made or simple synthesizers. You know, I was able to now suddenly,
Manny, the other one you done as well, which I absolutely loved, was the beginning. It's not made of flash, it's not made of stuff.
In the beginning,
human, man-made. Yeah.
So we slowed the tape recorder down and then sped it up so the voices were like this. You know, we could do that digitally now without, but that was all tape manipulation because there were no harmonizers. Soaring through the skies, and I would probably do it in this voice, and then pitching it up and bringing it back down, it would alter it. So that was my theater, my cinematic eye, my theater. That's how I wanted to see. I saw that as, you know, this alien landed, but I was also working with people like Klaus Nomi at the time. Who was, you know, an alien who sang opera and part of a downtown art movement in New York, which actually got me into the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, their permanent collection. I was blown away. They don't take music in their collection, but I had scores from two different films, and the music video for this was taken into the Museum of Modern Art's permanent collection.
But let's move on to also Boogie Down Bronx. I mean, Boogie Down Bronx was also another stone cold classic that, you know, it blew us all away. I mean, that's another amazing track.
So there's a story behind that too. That was, well, we had to do some follow-up records. Now, during this whole time, I wasn't paid for any of this. The stuff was all over the radio. I was the first person to do radio station vocoder spots. Like, there was a radio station in New York called 92 KTU, and it played like electro, what you guys call electro music, right? And there was a voice on it that went out to millions of people every day, 92 KTU, or Dance Classic, or the Carlos de Jesus remix or something. So I would do those for free, and the radio station in turn would play all of my records. And it was a sort of a payola. So we had to do, we were putting stuff up on the radio rather quickly. Everything. I mean, I worked on Alicia's Baby Talk. I worked with Boy George, Michael Jackson, Gloria Gaynor, Steve Strange, and Visage, Bronski Beat, Man to Man. I mean, I can go on and on and on. I was never paid. Managed Crystal Waters. I managed the Village People, flew around the world with them for 6 years, and saw the Wall in Berlin come down and produce a bit of their live show musically. But there was not a pressure, but you kind of wanted to keep everything going. So I was in, as I mentioned earlier, I was in an all-white neighborhood, but the corner building had the only black family in it, where John Carter's family, his father, I guess it was, upkept the building in exchange for free rent. And John Carter knew that man Parrish was in the neighborhood, and he would sit on my steps of my private home, and we'd go into record.
You'd have like a chinwag, like a chat.
No, well, he'd sit there and he'd say hello. When am I going to rhyme for you? And I'd be like, you know, one of these days, because we weren't doing any rhyme music. I was doing craft work. I said, all right. And we walked up one day and he went, cool, John Ski from the Freeze Cross Crew. You know, my man Parrish and cool Raoul, cooler than the water, swinkle. Cool. So we went upstairs and we're doing this track. And I said, you know, is that kid still down there? And he said, why? I said, come on, let's have him rhyme. It doesn't. And I went to him and I said, John, I don't know if you're going to get paid. I haven't been paid a penny. So if you want to do a rhyme over the song, you're more than welcome to. But I want to be perfectly clear. I don't control the purse strings. This record company does. They robbed me, you know. And he said, sure, I'll be on a record, and laid that down in 1 or 2 takes. And he hung around. And then I took his voice and played it back. I think I only had 1 track left on the A track after he did it, and an empty track, and I put his voice through the vocoder and played it musically behind him, getting him to sing-song it. And he was kind of blown away, and Boogie Down Bronx came out. Now,
history.
I want to let you guys, well, it wasn't instant history, and neither was hip-hop bebop. It was big in New York and some urban places, but it wasn't until years later that people looked back and what's the beginning of electro? Where did this start? What's the history? That people became more interested, and it gained way more momentum then. It was underground urban club music for years, and I basically went, you know, piece of crap, whatever.
We was listening to hip hop bebop and Boogie Down Bronx, and you know, there was a small handful of people in the UK that was really like me. That
Here too. Yeah, it was a small handful, but it didn't really break out until later. I wound up in Grand Theft Auto 1 and 3 with those things, and that went worldwide for 80 million copies. And who's this guy, Man Parrish? What is this sound? And they dug down a little bit and found this album and other tracks that I've done. So I still haven't been paid to this day for it. I finally gained the rights back. The record company, the guy who owned the record company, he became very rich. And I walked away from the record deal. And he called me back and said, let's talk, because he killed his golden egg. You know what I mean? He pulls up in a Porsche with a hand-carved dashboard and says, get in, let's go for a little trip. Takes me out to a private airport. We get in the private plane and flew to someplace, Martha's Vineyard. And on the way there, he says, you see this? He goes, you got this. Do some more music for me and I'll give you some money. And on the ride back, I completely looked out the window and wouldn't even talk to him. He goes, "Come on, Manny, be a good sport, do another record." And I never did, because I realized he went from 2 people in an office to 12 people in an office. And they built this little empire for him, literally on public assistance, welfare. I had food coupons, food stuff. In the summertime, I'd have the window open, and my song would be blasting, boom, 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 down the street in the cars, and I struggled to eat. So I told John, and he knew this.
Listen, Manny, that must have been absolutely gut-wrenching for you at the time.
I would get my rent paid, which was $900, and maybe another $100 for food, and that was it. So when that ran out, everything ran out, and I crashed really hard emotionally. When you wonder, where are people now? What happened to that guy? Where is Madonna? Where is this person? Whatever genre of music, chances are they got so severely ripped off by record companies. It hurts on such a deep level, because here you're going to become something, or you have a small amount of success, and then you get just ignored, or you're not that success. So for me, it screwed me up. For about 10 years, I stopped doing music. But I gained control of my music through the internet and through places like CD Baby, DistroKid, and Bandcamp. You can now put out your own music. You don't need record labels, and life is better.
Yeah. Well,
you don't sell records. You only make pennies from streaming, but at least I'm in control of it, and I own my stuff. And people ask me, can I put this in a movie? Can I add this to my blah, blah? And you're okay, give me a couple $100, and that's, I don't live on music.
And you was you're in a good place now.
I'm a male prostitute. That's how I make my money. For elderly people in nursing homes. I'm the young one. Yeah.
Leave your digits and I'll put them up.
Yeah, I was a male stripper, you know what I mean? So I just put on the jock strap. It's not pretty, but at least I could feed myself.
And actually, going back to the New York club scene, I mean, Studio 54s must have been absolutely amazing.
I was friends with my friend. I'm not going to say her name, but she was sleeping with the doorman at Studio 54. And she says, "You got to come to this club. It just opened up." I said, "Oh, right. We can't get in there." She goes, "Trust me, we can." So she had an AMC Pacer or Gremlin, one of these horrible little 70s cars that look like a bubble. And next to Studio 54 was a public parking lot. And we would park the car in there, and she would sew us costumes. I mean, she sewed us these outrageous fashion outfits that were horrible, that would never make it on any, TV show competition. And we would get to the back of the crowd, because the crowd spread out in front of Studio 54, and wait for a limo to pull up, and we would duck and run alongside the limo. And when the door opened, we would just follow the people in.
Make that you was with them.
Yeah, eight of us, you know what I mean? And we were there every weekend during the weeknights, and we became regulars. Then my friend Joey Arias, who's an incredible performer, and he's in the Man Parrish. You see pictures, there's me, there's 2 guys on either side. Joey is one of the guys. He got us Kansai. Yeah, and Joey worked at a place called Fiorucci, which was, they had jeans and a hip store in Manhattan. He got us the Kansai Yamamoto, which is Japanese designer outfits and all that. He was connected, and he was the look of Man Parrish. He did the makeup and all that kind of stuff. I didn't know any of that kind of stuff. He would paint me and spray me with glitter like a glitter robot, and we would play these heavy-duty urban all-black clubs, and I had this hood on my face with smoke coming out in the beginning of Man Parrish. Everybody, ooh, ooh, and they'd pull it off, and here was this glitter puff standing there going, "Hello!" And the room would go silent. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get killed. I'm doing hip hop music in glitter, and 2 guys twirling in dervish skirts, looking like trannies. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to get killed. We broke some ground. We definitely broke some ground. So, but Studio 54, Joey Fiorucci was doing a 10th anniversary, and they needed somebody to perform. And Joey was kind of like the spokesperson for Fiorucci. He said, "I'm in Man Parrish. We should do Man Parrish." And my mother had died the same day we were going on. We put her in she died a week or 2 or whatever it was before, and we put her in the cemetery. And I went from the cemetery to Studio 54 for rehearsal. And they said, do you have any special kind of entrance? And I was out of my mind. I looked at the ceiling and I said, I want to come in from up there at the top of the stage. You know, I want to be lowered down. So they gave me this little bar to sit on, a trapeze, like a parakeet, you know, swing. And they had a balcony that moved back and forth. They put it into place. They lowered a scrim so the audience wouldn't see me. And he said, you're going on the next song. Hold on. Don't swing back and forth because there's 20,000 volts of neon up there. The glass will shatter. You'll electrocute yourself and you'll die. And don't fall. You don't have a net. They lift me up and I'm going higher and higher. And I'm about 6 or 7 stories up on this little, I mean, twice maybe that thick of a bar to sit on. And I'm a big girl, you know what I mean? And I had this corduroy jumpsuit on, and those are the days before LED. So those bulbs were 3,000 watt, 3,000 watt bulbs. It must have been, I don't know what it is in centigrade, but 100 and, I'm looking at a thing. It must have been about 50, 40, 50 centigrade. I have a thermometer up there, and I'm starting to sweat, and the swing is moving back and forth, and I'm freaking out. And the song ends, and they put on another song. And I went, God, no. And my hands are wet, and I'm holding on to the thing, and I'm slipping, and I'm straightening myself, and I'm slipping, and the thing's moving back and forth. And I had a panic attack because a third song came on. Help! Get me out!
Get me down!
And you can't hear it because it was a massive Richard Long sound system. And I'm all the way up there, it's a little nothing up there. And I think 5 songs later, they finally lowered me down. And the guy working for me, we had dry ice on the stage. We're supposed to put this much of dry ice. He was a drunk, and he put about 7 feet of dry ice. And I thought that was the bottom of the stage. So instead of stepping off, I said, let me come up a little higher. And as I drop, my cape will puff out, and it'll be dramatic. Well, I took an Esther Williams nosedive into the pool. I twisted my ankle, and the whole first song, Man Made, was done in complete smoke. He oversmoked the stage. And
nobody could see anything.
And they were going, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And there was a girl who was our opening act. She went on later. The opening act went on around 2 o'clock in the morning when the place cleared out. And her name was Madonna. We performed 2 other places with her as opening act.
That's an amazing piece of history.
Oh, I went back a second time because, I met Michael Jackson that night. He was there, and they came into the dressing room and they said, Mr. Parrish, this big security guard dude, black dude, I said, what I do? I grew up in a mafia neighborhood in Brooklyn. It's like, what did I do? I didn't do anything. And he said, come with me. Michael wants to see you. I said, Michael, what is he, like the manager? Oh boy. I screwed up. I fell too far off the stage or something. And this is all without drugs, by the way. And they took me to a little VIP area. Michael Jackson was sitting there. It was Thriller it was Bad. I think Bad had just come out. And this is for the, was this the George, I think this is the George, was it the Hip Hop Bebop? Or I think it was a Fiorucci thing. Is it Fiorucci or the George Lucas Return of the Jedi? They wanted me there. And he said, hello, pleased to meet you. And I said, hi, Mr. Jackson. It's Michael. He says, I really like what you're doing. And I said, thank you, sir, being very respectful. We were both on the charts. He knocked me off at #1 on the dance charts. And that's okay. He goes, I'd like you to do a remix of my Speed Demon off the Bad album. And I said, I would like it. He goes, okay, thank you. Someone will be in touch. And the security guard grabbed me and pulled me away. And I'm like, okay, all right. And we wound up doing a remix of Speed Demon from Michael Jackson. Wow. Quincy Jones sent it over. Quincy loved it, and Michael Jackson hated it, so it never saw the light of day. I may have a recording of it somewhere, but I think Sony has it in their vault somewhere. So I also heard that when Prince died, somebody contacted me and told me Prince used to listen to my music, and I told him he was full of malarkey. And he later showed me pictures that he worked in the studio as an engineer with Prince, and he said Prince would listen to it, and he said it's a shame that Prince didn't hear my story because he would have stood up for me, got paid for a lawyer, and got me paid my royalties. And then I did the Winter Music Conference in Miami, and they said, you're sitting next to Bootsy Collins. And I went, what? He goes, the only reason he's doing it is because you're doing it. I said, oh, please, thank you, but you don't have to tweak my nipples to get me to do this. And I sat down, I said, before it started, everybody's walking in the room, and I turned and said, Mr. Clinton, I think you're amazing. He goes, yeah, man, I know your stuff too. He didn't use stuff. He used another poop word, which I don't want to say right now. He goes, I know your too. And I said, I think you're incredible. He goes, no, man, you're the SHYT. And I was like, what? He goes, I know who you are. I know who you are. And then just turned away and we did this. We were on a panel and I went, oh my God, because I never believed in myself. I never believed this little record I did in my bedroom had any weight or value to it. Yeah, impact. Yeah, I wound up in the Beastie Boys a book on their most influential people that they listened to. Later on, I got into groups like Underworld from the UK. When they split up, the lead singer had mentioned that I was an influence of what he did. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. I have to start believing in myself. And it took me many years of being screwed over to do that. And the last time I played at Studio 54, and we used to go every weekend, was George Lucas' Return of the Jedi premiere party in New York. When Return of the Jedi opened in New York, the after party was at Studio 54. And since I had a cape, I looked like Darth Vader, and they gave me this big laser, and I was popping balloons and doing hip hop, bebop, and man-made, which is really cool.
You know, you've got an incredible memory to be able to remember so far back.
Because I wasn't high. Because I wasn't high. But maybe it all was for a reason. So now I could be a storyteller. You know what I mean, as well as a producer. And I'm still doing records, folks.
You surely are. You surely are.
Yeah. I got 120 of them on iTunes, and I own them finally. You know. So,
yes. And Manny, obviously you called yourself. Yes, that's right. Manny, you called yourself. Well, you didn't call yourself Man Parrish. Your name's Manny Parrish. So how did you get your name to Man Parrish?
So during the Studio 54 thing, Andy Warhol is one of the people who used to hang out. And I was friends with one of his photographers. He had different photographers that worked for Interview magazine, which was Andy Warhol's magazine. And Chris Makos they did little spotlights on who's bubbling under, who's the next thing in downtown New York. And Chris took my picture. It was me, Klaus Nomi, maybe Aerosmith or whoever was, Ann Magnuson, the actress, whoever was, sort of bubbling up. This is before my record was out. And he took my picture, and then he called me up. He said, hey, you want to go up to Andy Warhol factory, in Union Square, New York? The proof, not the slides, the negatives came back, and there's a proof sheet, and you go and you circle the ones that you like you see on TV. I said, sure. And we're leaning over, looking at the things, and this one, which you use as your photo for for this particular article. I think it was a whole page they gave me. And Andy Warhol walks in, and I've seen him, hanging out Studio 54, and he goes, hi, sort of like what are you doing? And Chris said, well, we're looking at things from Manny Parrish. He goes, Manny Parrish? He goes, that's too common. And I was like, uh-oh, what? Oh, sorry, I guess I'm not going to be in the magazine. He goes, well, there was an artist called Man Ray, and he was a photographer. Right, yeah. He goes, change Manny to Man and become Man Parrish instead of Manny Parrish. And we okay with that? And I was like, yes, sir. You know what I mean? Sure, Captain. You know what I mean? Anything. I just want to be in the newspaper so I can show my friends I have this page in some obscure magazine. You know what I mean? And that's how Man Parrish stuck. And it was very uncomfortable for me. Is it M-A-N-N? Is it M-A-N? But that's how Man Parrish stuck.
That's how it come about through Andy Warhol.
Decided to keep it. And and it's weird because people, hey man, could I call you Man? Should I call you Manny? I mean, Manny Parrish is my real name. The Parrish was real, but it's uncomfortable for people to, hey man, can I ask you a question? I'm like, I'm Manny, but okay, Man Parrish. Like if you know Boy George, he's George O'Dowd. Hey George, you don't say hey boy, you know what I mean? So it's this funny thing, you know what I mean? But that's kind of uncomfortable. That's kind of like your musical kind of name, Man Parrish, but obviously your real name is. They say it as one word, and a lot of people thought early that I was a black guy or a group. And they were kind of surprised to see that it was this 6'2", glitter puff running around with makeup and glitter, and a cape. You're coming down from the ceiling at Studio 54 doing hip hop music. Like, what the hell is that? Like, huh? What the hell?
Are you, Manny?
Yeah.
Are you 6'2"?
4.
You're 6'4"?
6'4".
No.
Without heels. Without heels. Yeah. My friend says, "Yeah, you're a big girl." I'm like, "Thanks, buddy." You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm now. Notice it's from the neck up. I'm now a plus size model. This camera will never pan out past. It's always from the tits up. You know, I tell women my tits are bigger than yours. Yeah, my tits are bigger than yours. You know what I mean? So, yeah. I'm a plus size model now.
And Manny, I've got.
I love Johnny Lydon. Johnny Rotten said in an interview, "I'm 50, fat, and fabulous," and that was the best thing I've ever heard from anybody. I love him. He's such a mess. I love him. I just saw him in the new Punk documentary, and he's massive. I mean, he's 2 of me sitting on a couch, and he just doesn't give a F about it at all. Anarchy in the UK, if he could turn around and just say I'm 50, fat, and fabulous, and I'm 60, fat, and fabulous, God bless. Not bad for 60. Not bad for 60. But it's a gay 60. It's a gay 60. It's a gay 60.
And you've still got your hair as well.
This is real hair.
Yeah,
it's normally frizzy.
It's not a syrup.
My other half is a high-end, very... No. My other half is a he does like Jennifer Lopez hair and all these celebrity hairdos and stuff. And I said, "Well, I gotta do this interview, and my hair looks terrible." He goes, "Let me iron it." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I let it grow out. And, this is what you get when you live with a hairdresser. You know what I mean? I'm surprised it isn't purple or blonde. I managed to escape that, but this is my hair.
So, Manny, another couple of little questions for you. This is a little tough one. It's with all the different styles of music throughout the years. Can you give me a handful of tracks that have blown you away, which you've been like, wow, this is next level?
I stopped listening to music 10 years ago and started listening again. So before then, it's very early stuff. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, because I was a stoner smoking pot. Kraftwerk, Autobahn. I'm talking about old school stuff. Of course, things like Planet Rock I wasn't aware of until I started doing music. Erasure. I'm an Erasure junkie. It's not even Erasure. It's a Vince Clarke junkie, because I appreciate. It's very hard to do a pop track. I was limited by 8 tracks to recording, so I couldn't do 50, 100 track productions. That's why that album sounds so good, because you have to make things simple. You have to bring it down to less words. It's kind of like editing. So Vince Clarke is the king of that. He could do 5 or 6 counterpoint tracks and make this. Look at Situation. If you listen to it, there's not many tracks. The same thing with all the Depeche Mode stuff that he did. This new album, I'm doing 30 pop tunes remakes, and 3 or 4 of them are Vince Clarke tracks. You know what I mean? Because the simplicity of that. So he blew my mind the way that you could take synthesizer and do it. Vangelis, who I got to visit through my friend Cherry Vanilla, spent 2 weeks in Greece. Amazing, you know, because Blade Runner, I mean, my God, Star Wars and Blade Runner were the 2 films of the day that blew me away, and the Blade Runner soundtrack got me into Vangelis. So that's the old school stuff. I love you know, mid hip hop Missy Elliott, because it was twisted and it was kind of like what I want to do, like just weird, twisted, artsy things. I don't really, not into, you know, 2 rappers and a microphone, you know, complaining about how their life sucks, because I left home at 4. My mother was schizophrenic, tied me to a radiator, you know, then I went to a doctor who raped me over 3 years. And then I ran away from home, moved in with a pedophile that would take me to other pedophiles, and they put all these young boys in bed, and it was fun time, and ran away from that and lived in a loft where a roommate committed suicide. I had a record out that I didn't get paid, and then David Bowie's manager, and that all came crashing down. So I ran away from music and life for a long time, but that's all straightened out through therapy and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't listen to music because it hurt. It reminded me how much of a failure I was, which is just not right thinking, but that was my only response I could do after being robbed and seeing your music everywhere. But I'm 60, fat, and fabulous, and still running.
Listen, Manny, the main
doing
thing
film
is,
scores and all kinds of stuff.
The main thing is that you're in a good place now, and there's people like me. I'm sitting here in my home in London talking to an absolute legend that have touched our heart. So all I can do, I'll take my hat off to you, and a big round of applause to you as well. Yeah.
I'm looking for bald spots. I'm looking for bald spots with the hat on.
Absolutely incredible. Listen, Manny, we're going to have to round it up now because we're coming up to the time limit.
Yes. I think we got 1 minute left. Hurry up. Let's do it. Let's quick.
Yeah, so all I can say is, once again, a huge, massive respect for you for coming on to do this.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Anybody watching this, subscribe to my channel because I'm bringing a load of history with a load of.
Please do. This is great. Great interview.
Thank you.
I'm Man Parrish. I'm Man Parrish Artist on Facebook and Instagram. If you can't get in on Facebook, follow me. I put up all kinds of filthy things and get thrown off of Facebook all the time for my sick and twisted porn sense of humor. It's all on Man Parrish Stories on YouTube. You can get in there and see it. And
100%. I've been through it.
Thank you for digging.
Well, I know quite a lot about you anyway because I'm a big fan. But there's a lot, you got stories. There should be a book that you must write, or a TV program, or.
Well, like I said, the TV program is Man Parrish Stories. There are 40 episodes. I did 5 10-minute little things.
Yeah.
And go look at it. Man Parrish Artist. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Man Parrish, absolute huge respect. And one more thing, we got to give a big shout out again to all the doctors and nurses out there.
Yes, please. Amazing, risking their lives. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So our heart goes out.
I'm involved with the COVID-19 movie. If you go to we're doing a COVID-19 movie.
Yeah. Well, we'll try and get a link up for that as well. Man Parrish, listen, what can I say? Ultimate respect. Listen, it's an honor.
Take care.
Thank you.